Hello, Kira. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Maya. How are you?
I'm doing well. Very nice to see you. It's your first time on Law Break, although
Yes.
we both practiced in Ottawa primarily, and we've known each other for years now, but it's your first time here and hopefully not your last time
Yes. Ye-
on Law Break.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Kira, we are here because you're going to teach us about how you became a partner in a law firm, a partner as you being the only female partner in your firm currently, which is a pretty known and a really good law firm in Ottawa. But before we get into that, how about you introduce yourself to my audience?
Sure. So I am Keara Lundrigan. I am based out of Ottawa, Ontario, though originally from Newfoundland, and I'm a proud Newfoundlander, so I say that first. I currently work as a partner at AGP LLP here in Ottawa, but we practice all throughout the East region, so just as far as Belleville these days.
That's very nice. And what year of call are you,
I
Kira?
was, yes, I was called to the bar in 2018.
Okay. And have you always worked in the firm that you're currently a partner in?
No, not quite. So I began articling at this firm back in 2017. I completed my articles here. It was Abergel Goldstein and Partners at the time. I continued on as an associate on contract for a little bit and then moved around to a couple other firms for about a year, year and a half before coming back to this firm in January of 2020. And I've been here ever since.
Right. You came back as an associate and then slowly then you became now a partner in the
That's
firm.
correct.
So, okay, tell us then about these first years of being an associate at that firm.
I mean, it was great. There was so much mentorship between the partners. There were four partners at the time. Two have departed now, and then the other two are my current partners. I was the only associate for quite some time and the only articling student when I was here. So I was doing a lot of the on the ground in court work, bail work, remand court. So you get a lot of experience that way, but also a lot of experience in terms of research and drafting because you're the only one that's there to assist the partners with their work. So it was quite a heavy workload, but it was a very valuable experience in getting to learn everything and learning everything very quickly because I think the best way to learn is by doing. And so that was
I
very, very helpful to me.
okay. So then eventually you did become a partner. So can you explain to us how did that happen?
So I don't even know how it happened. It happened. It happened. I became a partner on January 1st of 2024. I have been working with the firm, obviously, then since January 1st of 2020, worked through COVID, kind of helped the partnership guide the firm through COVID, knowing how, the changes in practice directions that were coming in every day and the remand courts and managing in custody clients. And I was answering the phones and we didn't have assistants at the time at the first part of COVID. Um, and so I was doing a lot, I would say, of extra work on top of the legal work. And there was an opportunity for me to join the Crown's office, and I was debating back and forth. And it was when I was debating and when I brought that to the partnership at the time that they proposed that I become a partner and stay on the defense side. So that was the tipping the scales to say, and I wanted to stay in defense, and I just didn't know if I should as a young female, whether I, be able to advance into partnership, whether the Crown was a more stable path for me. And so they made that very generous offer, and I accepted.
All right. So is it fair to say then that it's that threat of you leaving and going to the Crown's office that made you become a partner in that firm, or not
I
necessarily?
don't want to call it a threat, but yes, I wasn't threatening to leave. I was genuinely conflicted. I never envisioned myself as a Crown. I always saw myself on the defense side of things. I can't picture myself incarcerating anyone or arguing for anyone's incarceration. And so I was very conflicted, and I went to the partnership saying, this is an opportunity I've been presented with. I don't know what to do. And they met on their own and came to the decision to offer me a position within the partnership. So maybe a threat, but yeah, it
Okay,
wasn't intended as such.
but you did disclose that to them, that you asked them kind of for their feedback on that? Because you could have just kept that to yourself, right? You could have just left without explaining why, and just that you don't want to be there anymore, and became. So, what made you though want to explain that to them?
I think it
That's
was, I
unusual.
really didn't want to leave. I really
Okay.
didn't. I wanted to stay on the defense side, but also, and I will say, the amount of trust that I had in the partnership, even as an associate, I was respected by the partnership and they valued me. And I knew that. And I knew that I could go to them and they would give me the right advice, whether it was what was best. They wouldn't give me what was best for them. They would tell me genuinely what was best for me and my career going forward. And I could trust them to do that. And so I was in a very unique position. I don't think um, every associate feels the same way, perhaps. So I'm very grateful for them for that.
And that's really very nice. Now, and it is true that you're in a unique position because, like I mentioned, a lot of people would just, if they have this offer, they'll just take it and they'll tell the partners or their bosses that they don't want to work there anymore and they'll just leave. They won't even, debate with them or ask them what they think. So you're actually in a very nice and privileged position here that you had. But what is not unique, though, is that there are a lot of females, unfortunately, we've noticed, Keara, who love the work that we do as defense lawyers, who really want to stay, but they don't. And so let's talk a little bit more about that because it's really heartbreaking when we see our colleagues leave despite their love for the work that we do. So
Yeah, I think, and I will say one other thing is that partner Lauren Goldstein had just left for the Crown's office when I was offered the position.
that
So
would have been
that was
too.
another
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, it was another factor, I guess, that the partnership was looking at, and another thing to my benefit,
yeah,
factor to my benefit when I joined the partnership. But certainly there are a lot of women. We see it, unfortunately, far too often, leaving for the Crown's office or leaving for other government jobs, typically, although sometimes in other areas of law as well. And I think part of it is, we know is the drain and the stress of this job. It's very unique
yeah.
in that it's very demanding from all ends, from the judiciary, from the crowns, and from your colleagues or your bosses and your clients. And when people want to have, or women want to have, more of a life outside of work, sometimes they want to devote more time to family. It's very difficult to do in this particular role. I think that's fair to say.
Right. And yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And any woman that does it is a superstar. Uh, Honestly, I don't have children myself, but I respect the hell out of every woman that does this job with kids at home.
And it is difficult to do regardless. I mean, you may not have children, but there are other things that people have, like family members that they have to take care of, or they have a personal circumstance that puts them at a disadvantage compared to other
Mhm.
people. And as we know, this job is very demanding. It's a full-time job, and we're almost working like 24 hours sometimes, especially if we're getting these late night calls and we have to stay up all night to deal with them. So it is a very tough job to do. But now that you are a partner, though, let's talk a little bit about how that is going. Because it's different, right? Like it's different when you're an associate versus when you're a partner. So tell us more about the differences.
I think the biggest difference is that I am in control of my own schedule and I am the master of my own destiny, in that if I, leave something until the last minute and I have to stay up all night working on it, that's my fault. That's because I chose to do that. It's not because somebody else forgot about it or somebody else is asking me to do it at the last minute. And so I'm less mad because it's me that put myself in that position, and I'm able to manage and budget my time more wisely. I know what I have generally coming up. Obviously, like you say, this is a 24/7 job. You don't know when you're going to get that station call, and you typically get that station call when you're already in the middle of something
Right.
quite large, right? They never happen when it's quiet.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
those those are the rules. So you always are going to have those things that come up unexpectedly, but you're able to manage them in your own way and how you think is the right way to do it, and you can manage your own time. And I think that is the biggest difference. And I'm not of course, I answer to my partners and we're working in a partnership and we work together and we're very collaborative. Don't get me wrong. But if someday, it's a sunny afternoon and I'm done court at 2 o'clock, I can go home and they know that, my work is going to get done and they're not wondering where I am or I'm not responsible for anybody else's things that need to get done. So that's kind of nice. You get a little bit more leeway, a little bit more control of your life.
And how are you finding working? Because you're the only female partner right now. Doesn't mean that it will
Yes.
remain this way. I'm pretty sure that, and knowing your partners, I think they'll be very open also to receiving other female partners into the partnership. But how are you finding the dynamic of working with two other guys as partners? Is it, like difficult? Is it frustrating? Do you feel like killing them some days or?
I'm sure they feel like killing me some days too. Uh, but I mean, it's always different. There's different perspectives. They're also 10 years my seniors, so they have a lot more experience. And it's Michael Spratt and Howard Krongold. And I have nothing but tremendous things to say about them. They have been incredibly supportive of me. They've talked me off a ledge more than once throughout my career so far. And I'm sure they'll do it again more than once in the rest of it. But, it's certainly a different perspective. And it's almost nice in a way because I look at something one way and they see it very differently, or they see something one way and they're not looking at maybe like the gendered aspect of it. We do have three associates, two female, one male. And so I always like to bring when dealing with staff or dealing with clients, even bringing my perspective into things. And I do think they value it, they listen to it. Do they always agree with it? No. But do I always agree with them? No. And that's okay. Like that's what the partnership is. But we all, at the end of the day, we're always okay with the decisions that we make. And they, I cannot say enough good things about them and their support of me throughout my entire career. I know I could call them at any time of the night and they'd answer to help me out.
Now, in addition to the fact that you're the only female, there's also, as you mentioned, they're 10 years your seniors. So there is quite of a generational gap between you and your partners. How is that going? Because I mean, sometimes it's a bit tough, like I find like the newer lawyers have a different perspective, a different way of practicing law than the more senior ones. How's that going?
Yeah, I would say because I am of a vintage before COVID, as are you,
Yeah.
we still have a little bit of that maybe old school style to us that I find the newer lawyers, COVID and beyond, it's really, I mean, it's changed the world, but it's changed the practice of criminal defense law as well. And so I think that the core is the same for us and they trained me. So I have that benefit as well. I know what they think is right or what they like and how we should operate. And so it's not that much of a gap. I mean, do I like to torment them when they don't know pop culture references or how to use social
Yeah.
media appropriately? Yes, absolutely. But for the most part, that it's not a huge difference. And Howard, too, he is our appellate wizard and he practices, Michael and I are in the trial courts, and not that Howard doesn't do any trials, but he's primarily an appellate lawyer and is great at it. And so his practice is very much separate from ours in that I don't deal with his matters. I used to when I was an associate. That's another difference, right? I used to help him on bail pending appeals and appellate work, but now I'm more
On
in
your,
my own
yeah.
on my own files in the trial courts. So that's another difference. But it's not the age gap isn't apparent all the time, but then sometimes it's glaringly apparent,
Yeah.
maybe is the best way to put it.
And just to go back here on the files and the work, how were you able to develop your own clientele in a firm? Because I find this is the most challenging part for someone who starts as an associate in a firm. It's being able to generate your own clients because you start off by getting your boss's clients, you help them, but they're the firm's client, the boss's client. But now, as a partner, you have to have your own, and you do have your own clients. So, explain for someone who's watching, Keara, and who wants to learn from you how to develop their own clients within a firm context. How did you do that?
I think the number one piece of advice I can give on that is it takes time,
Mhm.
right? And You're right. When you start at a firm, you're a first year associate, all of your clients are your boss's clients. But if the firm is doing well, which our firm is, and there's always clients calling, there's always people calling, these senior lawyers don't always have time to deal with the lower level offenses. And so even though it's been a client of the firm for, 20 years or 15 years or 10 years, and it's always been with that lawyer, there's always a handoff that happens at some point. And it's just, these charges, these can be dealt with by the associate and they eventually become your clients and you develop your own client relationship with them. If you're responsive to them, you're doing the work, you're doing good work for them, they know that you're competent and your boss is vouching for you, right? They're saying, trust her.
Yeah.
She knows what she's doing. And then eventually they become your clients organically. And of course, at the same time, there's new clients calling in all the time. And the way that we do it is we triage it. I myself and Michael triage it together usually, but we decide whether, this is a file that a partner should keep or whether we should hand it off to one of the associates. And if it's your file from the get-go, then it's you developing that client relationship. And this business, as we know, is referrals, right? So, you do well for a client in custody and all of a sudden that whole range has hired you. And that has nothing to do with your firm, but everything to do with the level of service that you've given that client and the level of satisfaction that that client has. So even though it may not seem like a very serious charge or a difficult client, it's not only what you're getting out of representing that client, but what that client can do for you and your reputation at the end of the day. And you need to keep that in perspective when dealing with every single case.
All right. And tell us then, Keara, while have you felt while you were working in the firm, now that you're a partner and you're equal now with your partners, but do you feel any kind of competition or some kind of jealousy? Because that's sometimes, something that I'm not saying in your firm, but in firms, this is something that can happen, that there is competition, or is it quite the opposite? It's very supportive, and do you guys work as a team? Now, I know that in Howard's case, he has a kind of a bit of a different practice. He does appellate work, and maybe you and Michael do a little bit of that, but this is primarily what Howard does. So I don't think that there would be that much of a competition there. But let's say between you and Michael, you both do the same kind of work that focuses on trial work. Have you ever felt that there was some kind of jealousy, or is it the opposite? Although I think I
No. Yeah, I think it's the opposite. Honestly, they're always willing to involve me. Michael and I just did a homicide together out in Nova Scotia. We did a homicide together a couple of years ago. They're always wanting to get me that experience to make sure that, I'll be in a position to do those files on my own. And now I have those files on my own, right? So I don't think there's any jealousy. I mean, is there friendly competition amongst the firm? Sure, but it's never serious and it's all in good fun. I think, it would be when you're multiple associates in the same firm, you likely feel that competitiveness a little bit more than when you're a partner because I feel secure, right? I know my position, I know my value. I'm not going anywhere. And they don't want me to go anywhere and I don't want them to go anywhere. So it's easier to kind of carve it out. But we certainly work as a team and even, I'm in Michael's office. Michael comes to my office. What do you think about this? What do you think about this set of facts or this legal argument? And Howard is in our office running through, his grounds of appeal, or we'll go to Howard's office and say, do you think there's a ground of appeal here? Or how should I handle this issue to perhaps create a ground of appeal when you're mid-trial? And so we're all very, very collaborative and being in the office is, I think, also incredibly valuable to anybody that wants to become a partner or is eager to learn. Some jobs can be done remotely and some aspects of our job can be done remotely, but you learn again by doing. And you also learn by osmosis. If the partners are in the office talking about things and you get to organically become part of that conversation and maybe ask your opinion or just listen and ask questions based on the high level things that they're talking about, then you learn more from that than you do from sitting at home in front of your computer. And so, even though it is annoying to come to the office every day, I think you get great, great value from it in this profession. And the mentorship comes naturally, as opposed to, I don't think, certainly when I was an associate and I was at home during COVID, it was more difficult to pick up the phone and call a partner to ask about something because you don't know what that partner is doing. You don't want to take up their time. You don't want to bother them. And you don't want to write a formal email. But if you're in the office and you see that they're, I don't know, making a coffee or chatting with someone, you're free to say,
That's a
hey,
good
can I
opportunity
bug you?
to,
Yeah,
yeah,
can I bug you
to
about this?
grab them. Yeah.
And them seeing you and seeing your eagerness and your interest is also valuable in terms of them seeing what you bring to the firm.
And that's the advantage of working in a firm is that you have other lawyers with you and you can always, pick their brains on what issues that you're dealing with or even, giving your input as well. Sometimes they're also looking for input and for a second opinion on something. So
Oh, absolutely.
that's the good thing about working in a firm.
And sometimes I ask my associates their opinions on things,
Exactly.
especially on the bail courts and the remand courts.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the bail experts, right? They spend more time in bail court than I do these days. And so they know the justices of the peace, they know the crowns in the bail court, and they're sharp. They know it. And so I'd rather go to them and ask them about those issues and we can trade back and forth, right?
And they're all really very nice. Like I know the associates as
Yeah.
well, and you have more female associates now. And nothing wrong with the male associate. That's
No.
really very nice.
We like Josh too. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really very nice. I see him in court and he works really hard.
Cheers.
But like they're all lovely people. Now, I do want to ask you though, Keara, because you did mention that you worked when you were still an associate at the firm. You did had a time where you worked for other firms, but then you came back to this firm. So why did you
Yes.
come back? Let's focus a bit on this point. What made you come back to this firm?
So at the time, I was working for a lawyer in a small firm. It was just myself and him, and he decided to join the Crown's office.
Okay.
And yeah, so it seems like everywhere I go,
Iris, right? It's
the
like
boss joins the Crown office. I know. I was like, is it me? Am I the problem? No. But he decided to join the Crown's office, and then my current firm knew of the situation and reached out to me and asked whether I would be willing to come back. And I again was like very happy to. I had a great experience here. It was just that they didn't have the capacity to keep me on, or they couldn't promise me a full time position at the time, and so it wasn't that they didn't want me. And then they had the capacity, and I was very excited to come back and work under them again because again the mentorship, having the four partners there to provide you that guidance was invaluable to me. And so they offered me a safety net, really, and I'm appreciative of that as well.
yeah, and that's really very nice that they still, wanted to give you the opportunity to be with them and to stay with them. And because that's, if we want to get now into this topic, which I find is really very important, especially for female lawyers, I find it's very difficult for females to remain in this profession. We see a lot of new female lawyers, and it's always very nice to see new faces, and especially
Yes.
new women in the profession. But the difficulty and the challenge has been for many years now how to keep them in the profession. And another challenge for females, especially when they work in a firm, is they all want to have what you have now and become a partner in the firm. But unfortunately, we don't see this happen too often. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, people don't kill me. It does happen, but it's more difficult for females to become a partner, even if they've been in a firm for many years, very difficult for them to become partners. So let's talk a little bit about what you think is the issue and what advice would you give to female lawyers who are watching this and who would like to follow your career path, Keara?
The piece of advice that I would give is never burn a bridge. I left this firm, right? I left and went out to try and see what else was out there. And I left on good terms and I came back on good terms. And because of that relationship that I had fostered, even though it didn't work out employment wise in the beginning, it worked out for me in the end. And so this profession is relationship building. And the more you get out there and the more you put yourself out there and do things that you're maybe not so comfortable with, but getting out there and doing them and meeting people and making those relationships is truly invaluable. You never know the opportunities that you're going to get because of those relationships. And so always remember that. I think you can leave somewhere and you can leave on the right terms or in the right way. It's not always it's not always devastating. It is a business at the end of the day, and people understand, you're making decisions for yourself. And as long as you're courteous and respectful about it, it shouldn't be held against you, or at least it wasn't in my case. And I certainly wouldn't hold it against anybody in a similar position to me. I do think the problem is when, we're starting out in criminal law. I always say criminal law are the paupers of law. We don't make the big law money. No firm does. And so we're not able to pay in the same way that the Crown's office does, for example. And we aren't able to offer the government benefits, even if, I mean, our firm, we have benefits for all our associates and our staff, but we're able to offer benefits, but they're certainly not the same as the government package. You can't buy benefits
Yeah.
as good as the government package. And so when I mean, you're making less than your peers of the same year of call, and you don't have access to those benefits, and you don't see a progression, or you don't see getting to the next step anytime soon. It is very tempting to go where the stability is, I think. And that's part of the problem. And so we're seeing now different organizations advocate on behalf of women and female defense lawyers, and with 11B issues around maternity leaves, or uh, the extended leave benefits, where others are stepping in to take over part of the practice and have an agreement. And having women be aware of the issues and women being willing to step in and help others, I think, is a big thing, and make it more willing and more hospitable to stay, because otherwise it can be very isolating and very lonely in this profession, especially if you're not part of a larger firm and you don't have that internal support. Yeah, I don't have an easy answer. I wish I did.
No, I know there is no easy answer, but I mean, you did mention some of the things that are really very important as well in this interview, is that it's also very important, especially if you like the firm you're in and you want to stay and you want to eventually become a partner, is first of all, you have to be present. You have to show your interest in the firm and really, like be there as much as possible and participate, I think, and take on as much as you can so that you can show that you are part of the firm, that the firm needs you because they wanted you back at the end of the day. Like even when you left, they still asked you back, and that's probably because they felt that you were part of the firm. So it's maybe showing that you are an integral part of this firm is really important as well to do.
Absolutely. And for women, I also say you don't get what you don't ask for, right? Closed mouths don't get fed. And I think our male colleagues are better than women generally. And I'm generalizing here. Again, it's not everybody, but at asking for what they want. And women typically are more timid and more reserved. And as a result, maybe we get left behind or held back a little bit eh, by our own nature, as
Mhm.
opposed to anything else. So don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask the partners, what do you think my future is like here? Do you think in 5, 10 years, is there a path to partnership whatsoever? Where do you see me in 5 years, 10 years? Ask them, because they'll be able to tell you, well, or they'll be able to tell you something, whether they'll be able to guarantee. I don't think anyone can guarantee anything in the world. And we say that to our clients all the time, right? Factors change, firms dissolve, new firms are created. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but at least you will have an idea of what needs to be done or what is available to you at this firm. And maybe if it isn't, then you start looking elsewhere and to somewhere where you could have that opportunity, or again, make that opportunity for yourself, go out on your own. Um, it's it's hard, it's scary, but we see men do it all the time, and I think women are just as capable, if not more, of doing the same thing.
And there are more and more women who are working on their own as well, who are leaving a firm, even if they don't have to have started as sole practitioners. But there are women who start in a firm and then they start their own, they branch out and they start their own firm as well. But I mean, like what you're saying here is especially applicable, I find, when you're working with partners who you know and you feel are like Michael and Howard are nice and are
Yes,
supportive. I understand it's a bit more difficult when you're dealing with more difficult personalities, but I mean, you're lucky in the sense that you have lovely partners. They're really very nice, very supportive. And so you should then feel more comfortable, I guess, opening up.
absolutely. I'm very lucky, and I know in larger firms too, you might not have the same collegiality as in the smaller firms because you get to know everybody, and the partners are more accessible just by virtue of the close knit or small nature of the firm, right? But also use the firm for your benefit. The firm is using you, right? They're
That's true.
benefiting from your labor, and so you benefit from the experience that you get there. Soak it all up, get everything you can from that experience and that opportunity, gain that knowledge, gain that experience, and decide. You might decide, I don't want to be in this firm, or I don't want to be in a big firm, I want to go out on my own, or I want to join with two or three of my colleagues. And you might use the firm for your first 5, 10 years and then say, okay, I'm ready to go out on my own, I don't need you anymore. And that's not a bad thing either, right? That's
And that
growth. But
happens a lot, I think. That's
yeah,
what we see happen a lot in criminal law. But I also wanted to ask you, Keara, about the business side, because when you become a partner, that's an added responsibility that you don't have to deal with when you're an associate. And for some people, that's sometimes what they don't want to deal with, and that's one of the reasons why they maybe don't want to go all the way and become partners because then you have like with this bigger position comes bigger and newer responsibilities. So how was it for you when you became a partner and you had to deal with other things that you didn't necessarily have to deal with when you were an associate? Can you explain that a little bit?
definitely the adjustment to know even your own personal finances, right? You're not on a salary all the time. You have to take care of your own taxes. You need to be mindful of all those things. And that was a steep learning curve at first for me. But it's also budgeting your time and, okay, I have to do this administrative work. This is my responsibility. I need to get this done. The other partners are relying on me. And again, I'm very lucky in that we split all of the administrative tasks. So it doesn't fall to just one of us. And the boys are very good at making sure that I'm not overburdened, and they'll take on things that I can't get done. And we often share it. Okay, say Michael's in a murder trial, then I'll do something that he may typically have to do, but I have a little more time than him. So we split it, but it's still, you do need to manage it, and it's on top of your practice, and your practice is growing too once you become a partner because you're just at that stage of your career, right? So you need to make sure that you have some balance. And I know it's very difficult in this profession to have balance, but you need to make sure that you're able to take that time away and recharge. And sometimes, taking a couple hours off at the end of the night and not focusing on work is the best thing that you can do to be more productive the next day. Or at least it is for me. If I burn myself out, uh, I'll lose a whole day the next day. Whereas if I know, no, like computer off. You take things, the urgent things get done. Everything gets done when it needs to get done, but you need to learn to prioritize, I think, even in terms of the administrative tasks, or else they'll overwhelm you because there's always something to do. And,
Right.
and you know that, you run your own firm as well. There's always something. You're never going to get away from it. And also delegate. Find, those financial administrators and good staff that can look after as much of that for you as you possibly can, because they have tremendous amount of value to you so that you can focus on the legal work as much as you can. But again, that is very hard. And probably a lot of lawyers are type A like me and don't like to delegate, but it's a lesson that I've learned over the years because you have to. There's no other way to do it.
Right. So it's true. It's absolutely true. It's very difficult for lawyers to delegate work, and lawyers tend to want to do everything all by themselves. But then, even with the delegation, though, you still have a lot of work. That's the problem, is that there's so much, but there is still a lot that you have to do on your own. But have you been able to find some time off, like to take, some time off, let's say in the evening and disconnect from work? Because I find that that's a challenge sometimes in this
It
profession.
is. And it definitely does not happen every evening for me. I am not going to pretend that I have solved everything and can go home and shut down. But you need to know when you need to put your foot down and work all evening, and when you need to take your foot off the gas a little bit. And it's a hard balance to strike, and we do work more than a lot of other professions, but it's you're working for yourself, and that's the benefit of it too, right? The work that you put in, you get the direct benefit of that, which like you don't necessarily as an associate, or if you don't own your own business or your own firm. And so that's a motivator and a driving force as well to get it done. At least it is for me. um yeah, it's you have to learn to say no as well. Do I need to take on this file? Can I give it to an associate? Can somebody else take care of this or that? You get better at it, but I'm not perfect at it, and I won't pretend to be.
And one last thing that I want to explore with you, Keara, it's for many female lawyers, lawyers in general, but especially female lawyers, and one of the reasons why they leave the profession is that fear of not having a salary anymore. Because when you're on your own or you're a partner, you generate your income. You're no longer receiving a secure, income every 2 weeks, or I don't know what frequency is anymore because
Yeah.
but
Right.
not an employee. Um, but that's also what people like to have, that security of knowing that at least there's an income that's coming in. And because they don't want to lose that security, that's what's stopping them from either starting their own firms or becoming a partner. What do you have to say for women who are hesitating because of that attachment to having a salary come in, a secure one? And that's also the reason
Obvious.
why they joined the Crown's office.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a very personal decision, and it depends how much risk that you want to take on yourself. But from my experience, it's a big risk, but it can be a big reward as well. And you get out what you put into it. And if you're going to work hard and you're going to hustle, then you're not going to fail. There's always work. There's always work out there, and it's finding your niche, finding the jurisdictions that are desperate for lawyers. That if you're willing to go there when others aren't, then you're going to develop a practice as long as you hustle and you work for it. And I don't think you need to be as afraid. Like the work will come, it will happen. It might not be right away. It might not be instant, and it might be uncomfortable in those early days, but it will come. And again, very personal. It's all about you and your risk. And if you want to be an associate for the rest of your life, that is okay too. Like that is absolutely fine. I don't think it's a negative if you're okay with working for somebody else and having a salary. I don't look down on anyone that does that. I Not at all. It's again a very personal decision, but I'm very personally very glad that I took that leap and took that risk.
And were you afraid though when you did that?
I had the benefit of coming into an established firm that was already had a solid client base. So it wasn't as terrifying for me. Certainly, it was still uncertain, and I didn't know, how it would go financially or how stable it would be financially from year to year. And a partner had just left, and things like that. So, but I was scared, but it wasn't overwhelmingly terrifying, if that's a way to put it.
All right. And so, any final thoughts, though, Keara, that you have for women who are watching this interview and who would like to become partners like you at a younger age, right? Because that's also what is so interesting, I find in your case, is that not only were you able to become a partner and a successful female partner in a male firm, but also at a very young age, because that's also sometimes a challenge for many females, is that even if they end up becoming partners, it feels like it's really after decades and decades of work. So, final thoughts of encouragement and like, is it something that you even would recommend other females to do?
I say take the leap. Don't be afraid. Take the risk. Obviously, be financially prudent, but take the risk. You don't get what you don't ask for, and take all the feedback. Eat it up, right? Good, bad, indifferent. Take it. Ask the partners. Talk to your partners. Talk to your colleagues. Ask them how you can improve, what they would like to see, where they see your strengths are. Having those conversations, even though sometimes it can be awkward, it at least lets you know where you stand, and at least lets you know where you can go. And when you know that, you can put together a plan, and it takes away a lot of that uncertainty, right? And but don't be afraid. Go for it.
Yes, that's, I think, the most important piece of advice that you can give anyone is not to be afraid. And sometimes the idea of something is scarier than the thing itself. So I totally agree.
Always.
Thank you so much, Keara, for taking the
Thank you for
time
having me.
to chat with me and to share your experience. And I really hope that this interview will inspire a lot of, especially female lawyers. I mean, it's not just for female lawyers, for any lawyer who is aspiring to become a partner in a firm, but especially, and I hope for female lawyers who are watching this, that it will give them hope and inspiration to become partners in their firms. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Naya. I really appreciate you having me.
It was my pleasure, and I hope to see you back again.
Excellent. Deal.